Marcus, we did a question early part of the year when ChatGPT 4 first came out, and we were talking about that. I've been using it like crazy ever since, and now it's sort of become mainstream. How do you think AI in general is going to impact commissioning and the delivery of buildings?
Well, I mean, okay, I personally don't use ChatGPT. I guess I'm old school. But when I think of AI, I don't just think of ChatGPT. Those are just words, right? And how people are trying to figure that out. When I look at AI, I look at like I have a human eye, okay? And if this eye was synthetic or, organic, whatever you want to call it, like it was a machine. This eye, obviously, I can see things in a certain light, a certain this, a certain that. I can focus on maybe three things, right? This eye, if it was basically a machine eye, could probably basically see 10 times more. It could probably see 5,000 things at once compared to my five. Okay, so when I think of AI in the field, I think of the future of drones. I think basically the future of, it could see things that we can't. It could see heat signatures, leaks, this. We're starting to use it. Obviously, what a forward-looking infrared camera is, it's like it's basically it's a computer eye that we can't see. Okay, so I'll give a story for this. One time I was at lunch with a contractor, and I've known him for a while, nice guy, and there were people there, and he came out and he was like, so how do you commissioners feel about working yourself out of a job? And I'm like, I don't understand what you mean. He goes, well, in the future, AI, it's going to come in and, we're going to like have robots building this, and this. And I go, hey, you're exactly right. I go, so the last time I looked, I'm like, it's still human beings out there working. I go, we're not, 100 yet or 2250 in the future. Yeah. I go, but when that happens, fine. I go, so right now humans are still making errors. We still have basically a job to figure out and find solutions to deficiencies because of human error, right? But I said one thing that myself and a lot of other people are doing is we're keeping up with the technology and the innovations, and we're learning how to basically read the code and the programming for the computers that are going out there. So I think I'm always going to have a job. I go, and I think that the people who are really looking to the future will, but at the exact same time, it's just like, a supply chain with like something going like that computer is literally scanning 1,000 a minute, a second, right? And we're just like 5. So can we use AI in the future to basically maybe have a camera over here that could see things and spot things that we couldn't? Yes. Should we be using better sensors? Yes. Is it a smart building? Is it a digital building? That's what IoT and AI is. If we use it for its benefit, I think we can turn over a better product. That's how I think AI should be used right now.
I agree with that. And I just think keeping it sort of meta rather than getting down the weeds, AI is going to bring accountability.
Yeah.
And it's going to raise the standard of construction and design.
But it's not going to replace the jobs.
No, it's not. What it might lead to is more modularization, because you're going to have to become a lot higher quality in terms of what you produce. And that's going to require modularization and a factory setting. So what I mean by that is it's going to become very clear once you start having AI applications on job sites and how buildings are run, what works and what doesn't work. So there was a future where a design team, let's call them Stantec, design a building. And they go, we've modeled this. So this is going to be the energy use intensity within this band range. It's going to meet this requirement, that requirement. And then it's going to get built and it ain't going to reach that. And then the hammer of the gods is going to come down on the design team, because someone's going to say, you said this, we verified it, it's not that. Look, every day it's doing this and not that. I'm going to sue you. And it's going to take a big firm to take a bullet in the head to have the whole industry realign itself and say, oh, well, we've really got to do better now.
Well, I mean, that's why we're using more and more with fault detection diagnostics. So think about it right now. So if there was a panel of people here and we all asked them the same question right here, what's the first thing that would say, like if they knew what they're talking about, what's the first area of a building turnover, a project that would say that is most affected by AI right now?
Data centers.
No. What would it be? BAS, control systems.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, controls, it's voodoo. Oh, just like commissioning, it's voodoo. It's alien works, right? They're like, what does controls do? Once again, controls are nothing more than one finger turning one switch, 5 fingers turning 5 switch, right? One finger turning off 1,000 switches. It's controlled, it's lever arm controlled, lever arms controls, automation, digital, direct controlled. You know what I mean? So it's just like occupancy sensors coming in. So we don't have to have a lot of CO2 sensors anymore that are just CO2. Now we have occupancy counters that basically take in, how many people come in to how much basically, CO2 we need, or basically, fresh air to come in. So things are changing. Things are getting better. Things are getting smarter because of AI. No, what's really happening, people don't realize this, is 10 years ago, that same humidistat, the same thermistor, that same contractor that used to basically cost $10 for basically, a little chip, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm holding this right here. So right here, this chip, I think this was 16 gigs, right? Nowadays, you can get a terabyte that basically costs less than this did 5 years ago, 7 years ago. So how is smart buildings getting better? How is AI getting better? Because the cost to manufacture those little boogers is coming down, so we can actually become mainstream. So you don't basically just have to be, the space station to have this. So is it benefiting us? Yes. But what's the one big problem we have is data overload. Data overload. So once again, that's why we need more data centers. That's why we need more, more server rooms, more data, right? But at the end of the day, this is the best part is I love it how they're like, well, we got to reduce energy. Does anybody have any idea how much those facilities use for energy? You know what I mean? For cooling, and computing power.
Oh, yeah.
They're the most amazing things to have, but it's just like, there's so many things that are being missed at the exact same time that, I mean, they should all be made, they should be, in the ocean or in the Antarctica, like some of the big companies doing. But data is driving it. Data. And then everybody, always talks about, oh, I don't want my data online, but I want to be able to find that on Amazon right there. I want to be able to buy it like that. I want it delivered to my house in 4 minutes. Data.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I've been speaking to a lot of clients recently in the Middle East, and there's always a director for smart buildings, a director for digital cities and digital buildings. Yeah. And they say to me, well, we want a smart building. I said, have you got a BAS in your system? Building? Yeah, you've got a smart building, dude. You got it. The trick is to actually use it properly. This is where it all falls down. People are looking, the problem is the people making decisions and running big jobs are looking for a Google or an Apple to come in and sprinkle a bit of downloadable software on it and fix everything. Yeah. That is never going to happen in our business. There's a reason Google haven't crashed into the construction industry, because the construction industry is an utter nightmare.
Well, we can go into another, like we're talking about controls. Now, the future basically used to go from Modbus because it's local to basically daisy chain. Now we're doing MSTP. Now we're doing TCP, IP. And you start talking about home runs. You start talking about network switches that are basically like 70 weeks out. I mean, we're going on and on and on about the future, making it future, right? Yeah. But it's just more money, more this, more that, more this. I mean, yeah, you have better control, better this, better that. But at the same time, does it actually, reduce service calls? Yes, it could, right? But at the same time, you got to have a more precise type of person or people, that basically can take care of that. So it's just, I always basically say like that, like be careful of what you ask for.
Well, this AI is going to lead ultimately, right, to more measurement, more precision, more real feedback on how things are working. And that will then feed back into the design loop and make design different and construction different.
But what buildings really need it? I mean, we have to basically say, if it's basically a McDonald's or something like that, if there's food, if there's critical stuff, that's one. If there's pharma, right? If there's data, if it's mission critical, if it's a hospital, it's like you really got to basically have this like a la carte where it's just like, it's kind of like having like like a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary market. They always say like, hey, all the stuff that we don't use anymore, a third world country is going to use. So it's just like, if we're first world and we're going to go, let's go with that. We're going to be flying, little, the space things going over here. Well, what about the other ones? We're going to basically take stuff that we used to do and bring it over there, and they over there. We're progressing, but the data that's coming in, it's data overload. It's like a tidal wave of data that's just getting dropped on people, and we don't know how to.
People will learn how to manage that
through it.
The other thing that's going to happen is once you start measuring and understanding things, you can pick out winners and losers and good behavior and bad behavior. And that is going to lead to taxation, or let's call it incentive and disincentive with money to do things, right? So they're going to say to, I don't know, the data center crowd, hey, if you're between this band and this band, you're good. If you're outside this, we're going to punish you, right?
Well, there's got to be incentives. There's got to be something. Like right now, like every piece of equipment that comes to you will have 1,000+ points, and you're like, I only need 6. Yeah. You're like, and so then you're like, okay, now we have to make sure that the naming, the tagging, the coordination, the this, the gateway, that, does it talk to this? It gets insane how many pieces there are. And then that's when they're like, well, you take care of that. You and the control teams, you fix the widget. You guys know what you're doing. Like, and that's why people like literally, why go to college, right? It used to be the computer. Now you can basically get online and you can basically do all these certifications to get all these things. And you could basically be, one day you could be at, a barista at Starbucks. And then basically in 3 years, you could basically be a computer programmer doing a database administrator for this, making a good amount of money. I agree with it. Like if people, know that they're going to be doing these things, and that's why like they say 60% of the jobs right now in the next 10 years are not even created. It's going to be nothing but coding. The problem is what happens when you're in the field? You got to still be able to like touch something and fix it. We're not at the year 2250 yet. We're still in 2023. We're just at basically the precipice of this thing that's going to take off. And I mean, we're getting gray hairs, and some people don't have hair, right? But we're still the people that are there. Last thing I'm going to say here, I'll give you an example. I went to the store last night. Okay. I got on a Fry's app. Okay. Cause I wanted to save $4 on my bag of shrimp. Okay. And there was a digital coupon. So I downloaded the Fry's Kroger brand. Right. I went on there and I spent literally 20 minutes. Right. I walked over to her. She goes, oh, the internet's so bad. I'm sorry. We couldn't get it working. And then I did something else to get it working. And then she goes, oh, I literally handed the cashier my phone. And she was like, got it right there. I'm like, oh, thank you. I saved $4 for my 1 pound of shrimp. You know what I mean? But it's just like, was it worth 35 minutes of my life to do that? No. And that's why people don't do it.
No, but I actually think there's a couple of things here, just to wrap it up from my end. AI is going to bring accountability, and I would advise any young engineers now to learn data analysis.
Yes.
And understand how to write an algorithm, right? But the other thing it's going to bring is it's going to create high-paid jobs with people who understand applied engineering. Because you're still going to need people who understand the systems point of view, the building point of view, and be able to interpret all that data. So there's the collect the data, analyze it, and then there's the interpretation and act. And the future belongs to people with applied knowledge, in my opinion.
Okay, so last thing I'm going to say to this is like what I've noticed is right now with the silos, like you'll have architects, engineers, construction project managers, right? And then you'll have controls. You'll have people over here, right? So the problem is right now in my classes, what I teach is I cover like a little bit of bits and pieces. I'll go over basically controls. I'll go over the different LAN, the Modbus, the Ethernet, the TCP, MSTPs, all the different areas. I'll call supervisory, all the different areas, right? I'll cover it. And they'll be like, what are you looking at? Like, I'm like, you're 4th years, 5th years, and 6th years. Some are engineers, some are architects, some are construction managers. They're like, we've never gone over this. I think the problem is it's become such a technical, like just like, I don't have to go to college for this. I'm just going to do this, but they're going to get paid a good amount of money, right? But then you have the people who are in college learning all these other things that they expect them to get out to learn this. They're not. It's like we're siloing people too much instead of applied, what you just said, applied. But the only way you can apply something is if you actually learn the layers of it, like a single pane of glass. I call it a triple pane of glass. I wish I could coin that, because a single pane of glass is everything's on one thing. I joke around and say, what if it's just a triple pane and they just squish it, right? So that's IoT. So the thing about it is you have to understand a little bit of a lot to basically be the person or people who apply it. Otherwise, you're siloed, and you're only can do is you can call that person up that can come to your job site once a week because they're so in demand that you and your people can't figure it out, when all it is simply just you go inside and you go, it's a little switch. You're like, oh my God. I just paid that much money and I waited a week for a switch. Everybody just heard me say that knows what I'm talking about. So we all need to become better. I know it's like kumbaya again, team, but everybody, there's too many pieces.
There's a crisis of competence, but that's another question. Let's wrap it up there.